Hey guys, welcome to the channel. As you see in the thumbnail, what if Deku become a Cyborg Hero Part 1. Before I start, please do support for more awesome content and subscribe my channel and like this video and also share this video with your friends. I have created my other videos playlist, there you can watch my all videos easily, check out as well. Let's start this video. Oh god, there's so much blood. I hear someone screaming. Where's his leg? Holy, is that his arm over there? I hear sirens approaching. He's still breathing, half of his chest is caved in. Another voice rings, it hurts to keep my eyes open. Please, stay with me, you're going to be okay, please, please, please. As everything begins to fade to black. How did I get here was my last thought before my eyes closed. 2 hours ago. Stupid Kachin, Izuku muttered as he pulled himself out of the riverbed. He had just gotten out of school when his childhood best friend turned bully, and his goons decided that Izuku hadn't gotten enough exercise in gym class, so they made sure he went for a swim. Dripping wet, the young green-haired boy crawled up the embankment. His torment had gone on for close to 10 years now, ever since I was diagnosed quirkless everyone's been dumping on me. Izuku reached into the water and grabbed his backpack. He started pulling out his belongings, anything made of paper was ruined, and anything with electronics was unsalvageable, like his phone. I guess I need to come up with some lies again. As the young boy walked down the path he normally walked home, he never had people to hang out with or go anywhere, so it was a path he could travel with his eyes closed and earbuds in, but since his phone was destroyed, he had to listen to sounds of cars and people as he walked. As he passed by an alleyway he heard a sniffle, somehow over all the noise of the crowds and cars Izuku could hear it, someone was in distress. Izuku turned down the alley and crept toward the sound, hello. He called out. Is someone there? Are you okay? He ventured further in. Before he stumbled upon a girl who looked his age, with a long black ponytail, and looking on her features, Izuku blushed furiously, holy super crap, this girl is hot. Are you okay? Miss? Izuku cautiously approached, not wanting to startle the girl. She looked up at him with big puffy eyes, before she wiped away some tears, SNF, yes, I'm fine. You don't sound fine. Izuku said, how can I help? The 4 most important words he's ever known. A hero is not someone who can stop a crime, defeat the bad guy, and get the girl. It's just someone who sees something they think is wrong and asks, how can I help? It's really not important. The girl said more indignantly. Izuku didn't want to let this go, someone needed help and he was going to be there. If it makes you cry, it has to be important. Please, I want to help you. As he sat down cross-legged in front of her, even if the only thing I can do is listen. He smiled widely at her. The girl smirked, at least he's determined. Sighing before she relented. It's my parents, they don't want me to be a hero, they want me to go to business school and learn to run their company. She watched as the boy never took his gaze off her. I have a strong quirk, and I want to use it for more than just designing products for my parents' company. I want to go to the UA and be a pro and save people. Be more than what people see. You understand, right? Izuku thought for a moment, sort of, he scratched his head. I think that it's truly special that you want to save people with your power, and I understand what it means to want something that everyone who should be supporting and cheering you on wants you for something else. He recalled his mother giving up on his dreams, his father taking off, his friends deserting him, his teachers ignoring him. Tears welled up in his eyes. It's not fair, and it hurts so much, but you have to fight. You can let them tell you what you can be, or you can make yourself into the person you want to be. He stood up on his 2 feet and extended his hand towards her. I've always wanted to be a hero, and I think that's really great that you want to save people, and I bet with however awesome your quirk is you'll be a great hero, one of the best. So, don't let anyone stop you, because I believe you can become a hero. He started to say all the things he wished someone had been brave enough to say to him. The girl blushed at the empowering speech she was given before taking the boy's hand. Wow, that's some speech. She stood up, and suddenly the boy's face turned a shade of crimson. Is something wrong? Sweet merciful God, why is she so hot? Izuku quickly shut his eyes and looked away. The girl looked down for a second and then realized, what a little gentleman. The blouse she was wearing was one that clung to her form being tucked into her skirt. It really made her mature figure stand out even more than it normally would. Do you like what you see? It's okay if you do. Izuku nervously nodded his head, causing the young lady to laugh. Oh, you're too much. I'm Momo Yaoyorozu. I'm the daughter of Nashi and Ringo Yaoyorozu. Izuku gasped, Yaoyorozu Industries, they're the preeminent hero support company, they design and sell the gear 83% of all pro heroes in Japan use, 47% in China, 62% in Korea, and they recently signed a contract to provide 22.22% of supplies to the American heroes. Izuku nerded out over related hero knowledge. Wow, you sure know a lot about my family's company. What's your name? Momo chuckled. Blushing at his unintended knowledge dump, Izuku me Midoriya, my mother is Inko Midoriya, and my father is he trailed, not sure how to answer that. His father's name is Hisashi Midoriya, but he hasn't seen him since he was 4, so what does that make him? Momo, realizing that to be a delicate situation, maneuvered the conversation in a different direction. Since we're sharing, and I told you my dream, what about yours? She asked, then watched as the boy's features hardened and softened. Midoriya, I'm sorry, it's okay if you don't. All my life, he clenched his fist. I have had a dream that one day I could be a hero that people look up to, even in the darkest hour. When I arrive, and they see my smile, they know they are safe. I want to be a hero that saves everyone no matter what. I don't care if I'm the strongest, fastest, smartest or most powerful. I want to be a hero for everyone. I want it so bad it burns in my chest like a fire. I want something I can never have. Momo looked at his tear-stained face. What do you mean, Midoriya? You sound like a hero already. I'm quirkless, he bluntly said. I can't save anyone, I can't save myself, but you have a quirk, and it must be incredible. You're going to go on and do amazing things, save tons of people, and every step of the way I'll be cheering for you. Believe in yourself. If you can't do that, believe in me, because I believe in you. Momo stared at this strange boy she had just met. Izu, before the sound of cackling cut her off. Well, ain't that just fucking precious? As two figures strode out from around the corner. The first person looked like a 7-foot-tall bear man, his fur-covered arms ending in large thick claws. The second was a woman wearing spiked BDSM gear while carrying a large spiked whip. The woman strode over, cracking her whip along the ground, leaving gashes in the ground. Oh, weren't they cute together? Do you think they'll look cute when they're in pieces? Maybe, but you heard the lady, she's some rich dad's little. The bear man leaned closer to Momo, which made Izuku pull her away from him. Itty-bitty princess. Then he looked her up and down, well, maybe not itty-bitty. As his long tongue lapped at his jowls. So, we kidnap her, then you and I can play with her a bit. She doesn't need to be able to walk or even speak freely before we call her daddy and ransom her off. The woman flexed her whip between her hands. I like that plan, the bear man said as he watched out of the corner of his eye as Izuku started to nudge Momo back and away from these kidnappers, and I can have the little boy for a snack. The woman cackled evilly. Yes, let's do this quick before someone comes by and sees us. Momo ran. Izuku pushed Momo out of the way of the whip. What, but you? Momo cried out as the bear man rushed the two teens. I'll hold them off, you go get help. Izuku threw his book bag at the charging enemy, its contents spilling out, making him miss the first massive swing of his claws. Please. Momo shakily got to her feet and nodded before running off. Oh no, you don't, bitch. The woman with the whip says, and she sends it down the alley to catch her escaping target. Only to be stopped when it wrapped around Izuku's flung-out arm. Midoriya cried out in pain as the spikes carved deep cuts into his arm, making him bleed like a fountain onto the ground. Momo covered her ears and kept running even as the nice boy screamed in pain behind her. She was feet away from the alleyway entrance, moments from the help she desperately needed. When she stepped out into the daylight, she screamed at the top of her lungs. Startling and alerting a passing group of heroes and sidekicks that were patrolling the area. The bear man tried to rush past the boy who had been captured by his mate when somehow the boy tackled right into him. Wah, how did you? Before noticing that the boy had pulled so hard to get free of the whip that it severed his arm off completely. I won't let you hurt her. Izuku raised his remaining good arm and clenched his fist. I am going to stop you, because it's what heroes do. The woman cackled. Oh, he thinks he's a hero, Bearhead, she called out to her lover. Kill him. The villain gained a nasty gleam in his eyes. Gladly, before smashing the back of his large paw into Izuku's chest, caving in one side of it. Izuku coughed up a large amount of blood as he cracked his head on the opposite wall. He barely had enough time to register that the fangs of the bear villain were rapidly closing in on him, so he did the only thing he could. He kicked right into the villain's open mouth. Bearhead began choking. The brat shoved his foot down my throat. Snarling, he began whipping his head back and forth, gnawing on the leg to shake free his prey. Then with a sickening crunch and nightmarish tearing sound, the boy's leg was wrenched free from his thigh. Izuku slammed down hard onto the ground with nothing to support him now that his leg had been torn off. He heard the villain coughing and gagging, them yelling something before the sound of their footsteps ran away. Izuku could hear other footsteps approaching, then it was pure madness, so much screaming and shouting he couldn't make heads or tails of it all, but he could faintly make out the sound of Momo telling him it would be okay. So, he did his best to smile before closing his eyes. Inko Midoriya had just pulled a load of laundry out of the machine. It was midday, and the stay-at-home mom was busy tidying up until she heard a knock on her front door. As she shuffled over to the door, the slightly overweight woman noticed bright red and blue flashing lights. She cautiously opened the front door. Yes, she gazed at the two police officers. Are you Inko Midoriya? The cat-headed officer solemnly asked. Before the woman dropped to her knees. No, 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 she began stammering. Is Izuku, my bubba baby. Before her sadness was replaced with unrelenting fury, she grabbed the collar of one of the officer's shirts. Where is my baby? She snarled. Both officers knew this would be a very emotional time for the woman and were giving her a lot of leeway in how she was acting. Ma'am, your son is at Mustafa General, he's in critical condition, and the doctors. Before the woman slammed the door behind her. What are you two standing around for? She shouted at them, my baby needs me. Before rushing down the steps. The 10-minute drive was heart-wrenching for the single mother. Tell me what happened. The two officers shared a look. There was an attack. The cat officer started. Two villains tried to abduct a teenage girl, and it seems your son tried to stop them. How, who, when? She had too many questions to ask. Ma'am, when we get to the hospital the doctors will explain everything, the other officer with a large tail responded. The car hadn't even come to a complete stop before the woman had opened the door, tripping before picking herself up and running inside. You have my condolences, ma'am. Even if the woman could no longer hear him. Inko rushed up to a nurse's station and started a stream of words so fast the nurse just couldn't keep up until she stopped and gathered her thoughts. Where is my son? She asked. The young mother was rushing down the hallways to the ICU to where her boy was being kept on machines when she saw a teenage girl yelling and screaming into a phone. Excuse me, she called out to the teen, is this room 314-1? The girl's eyes grew wide. You're Inko Midoriya? She asked quietly, the mother nodded in response. Yes, please, he's over here. She took the older woman's hand in her own and dragged her to the observation window. What Inko looked at had her on her knees, body-racking sobs as tears spilled from her eyes. No, please, my baby. Izuku was hooked up to a respirator, his eyes shut as the very slow and soft beeping of the life support machines did their best. Izuku's left arm was missing from the middle of his humerus. His right leg had been severed at the knee, and it looked like he had a bowling ball dropped onto his chest. Please, no, my baby. Inko's tear-ridden face turned to the young teenage girl. How, who, why, was all she could ask. Momo was doing her best to keep her composure. Your son protected me, two villains wanted to kidnap and hurt me, but Izuku told me to run to get help. She tried to comfort the distressed mother until a voice came over the phone, then she got furious. I don't fucking care how much it cost R&D, you will bring the prototype to the hospital 5 minutes ago, that's an order you goddamn waste of space, before blushing at her outburst. Wah? Was all Inko could say before a doctor came in. Mrs. Midoriya, I'm drive. Takahashi, as he looked sullen. I have to be honest, unless there is a miracle your son won't survive the night. No, please, anything, I'll do anything, give anything, just save my baby. As the woman clawed at the doctor's coat. I am sorry, there's nothing we can do for him. Our strongest healing quirks cannot repair this level of damage in your son. The fact he is even still alive shows a will to live that I have never seen before. The doctor placed his hand on the grieving mother's shoulder. Please take all the time you need, and I and everyone at this hospital are truly sorry. Before he walked down the hall. Inko quietly walked into the room and sat in a chair next to her son's soon-to-be deathbed. It's not fair, he's so young. Where were the heroes? She lamented. In her grief she didn't hear the door open. The hero was right there, Momo said. Your son was a hero, he was my hero. He saved me, and I swear I will do everything in my power to save him now. Inko wiped her tear-stained cheeks. How? Inko whispered. The door opened, and a team of doctors in gray lab coats entered and set up around the boy's bed. Inko watched as men in black suits kept the hospital doctors and nurses out of the room. A short woman in a striped suit walked over to the tall teenager. Your parents are going to be furious. Momo whipped around so fast her ponytail snapped in the air. If my parents had listened to me none of this would be happening, she stomped toward the cowering woman. If they hadn't hounded me out of the house, I wouldn't have been in that alley in the first place, and that, as she pointed to Izuku as the scientists began hooking up wires and bags of silver liquid up to the nearly dead boy. The young man over there wouldn't have had to risk everything to protect me. Momo jabbed her finger into the woman's chest, so you can go right to mommy and daddy and tell them to go fuck themselves, because if he dies from this, I won't ever come back. Lady Yaoyorozu, please think of your future. The woman begged. Momo growled, I did think, and now I'm taking action. I'm going to be the person I want to be. Something, he pointed to Izuku again, taught me. Turning to the scientists who were staring wide-eyed at the young heiress, and what are you all looking at me for? Help him, she ordered. The scientists got back to work injecting Izuku with various mixtures and chemicals. What is going on? Inko finally found her voice. Momo created a chair with her quirk and sat next to the mother, Mrs. Midoriya. My name is Momo Yaoyorozu. My parents' company develops technology to provide the support gear for pro heroes. She gently stroked Inko's hand. But what are they doing to Izuku? Inko asked the girl. We are in the development stage of a new technology, Nanomachines. It's a complete prototype of microscopic machines that can be programmed to do anything. She answered, I hope that with these they can be programmed to heal your son's injuries. Do you really think this will work? Inko begged, holding on to the hope that there was a chance her son could be saved. It's the best shot I have, Momo nodded as both women watched a mixture of machines enter Izuku's bloodstream. Now we have to wait. After the nanomachines were injected, the scientists instructed everyone to leave the room and they would observe through the window. When they stepped out, the hospital security and the bodyguards were at a standoff, and the doctor who had talked to Inko early was frustrated. Young lady, you can't just have your people come in and run treatments that haven't been approved by the board on people who aren't your patients. Inko was furious. How dare you speak to her that way? She marched right past the private security. You gave up on my son and we're just going to let him die. She is at least doing something. Even if it doesn't work, I will be able to rest knowing people didn't give up on him. The doctor threw his hands up and walked away. Ugh, he's quirkless anyway, not much to get over. Leaving a stunned mother behind. Inko Midoriya shrieked in rage, and it took both the combined efforts of the private security and hospital security to hold her back. Ma'am, please. Momo took Inko's hand. Let's ignore him and watch Izuku. The mother begrudgingly accepted and walked with the beautiful teen and watched as her son twitched in bed, reacting to something. Momo, came a thunderous shout from down the hall as a man and woman dressed in fine suits and jewelry stormed down the hallway. You have a lot to answer for taking those nanomachines, which cost over 100 billion yen in development. The woman strode up to her daughter. Her father passed by the security and looked into the window, all for a boy. He growled, you better have a damn good reason or we'll. Inko had enough, or what? That is my son in there. She jabbed her finger into the irate father's chest. He may be dying, and your wonderful daughter is doing everything she can to save his life. The security and scientists watching the back and forth arguments between their employers and a housewife. Before loud screaming came from inside the room. All eyes flashed to the window to watch as Izuku spasmed and thrashed in the bed, screaming louder and louder in pain as deep red lines appeared throughout his body as the coverings on his head, arm, and leg tore off as new metallic limbs and organs formed. His chest filled back up as the nanomachine replicated themselves, dissolving fabric and other unnecessary material in and around the body to multiply into the needed atoms for reconstruction. Izuku, Inko screamed as she rushed for the door, only to be held back by the scientists. No, let me go, he needs me. Struggling against the mother, you have to wait until the machines stop assimilating material, or they might take from you next. Inko looked through the observation window as tendrils leapt from her son's body and started covering the various medical equipment before merging back into Izuku. His body began to lessen its violent movements, and his screaming turned into moaning as Izuku settled down. All the observers rushed into the room as Izuku came to. He looked around the room, his vision split as half of what he could see was in infrared, and the rest just looked blurry. He could see shapes moving around. Izuku, sweetie, honey, baby. Inko cried as she held onto her son's hand. Talk to me, tell me you're alright. Mo, he stammered. Yes, mommy's here. Inko quickly replied. Where's Momo? Izuku asked, is she okay? Yes, Izuku, I'm safe, you saved me. Momo called out to him. Then who's holding my hand? Izuku asked another question. Izuku, it's me, your mother, she confusedly responded. I'm sorry, Izuku softly spoke. I don't know who you are. What? Inko squeaked out. Sweetie, it's me, mommy. Izuku stared at the woman with a blank expression. I know what a mother is, and I should have one, but I don't know who you are. Izuku looked around the room as his vision cleared up and normalized, with one side still in the infrared, but the detail made it easy to pick up the fine details of a person's face. Momo, what happened? I remember the fight and losing, but I don't, everything else is as he gripped his head with his new metal arm. Feeling the cool touch of it on his skin, he looked down at it and shouted, what the, how, when? Momo quickly moved up to the opposite side of Izuku and attempted to calm him down. Izuku, wait please, listen. She struggled as he moved the sheets off his legs and shouted again when he saw the right one was also covered in the same metallic substance. Izuku pushed off the bed and stumbled to the floor, cracking it with his metal arm as he caught himself. He awkwardly stood up and stumbled over to a metal pan to see his reflection, and he screamed again. His left eye was silver in color with a blood-red iris, then as he blinked in panic the red became green and his vision was blinded by intense color. Then when he opened it again it turned gold with it showing a halo round object. What help when he next opened his eyes everything was normal, but the iris was glowing blue. Momo cautiously walked behind him. Izuku, calm down, please. She extended her hand out to him. He reached for it almost instinctively and let her lead him back to his bed, the other people in the room watching silently. Izuku, what do you remember today? Izuku thought and brought up the memories from earlier. I remember climbing out of a river, Kachin, and his friends threw me in. Inko gasped. She knew Kitsuki wasn't her son's friend after everyone else's quirks developed except for his, but to think he was a bully. Momo wasn't happy to hear that either, and it would explain why Izuku was wet when they met, and then what? I remember you look so sad, but I wanted to help you. He silently said, making Momo blush. Do you remember the villains? Izuku nodded. The big guy, the lady called him Bearhead. Izuku started pointing at his limbs. They did this, the whip got on my arm, and the guy bit off my leg. Izuku asked, did they get you too? Momo shook her head. No, I got out of the alleyway, and some passing heroes heard me scream. They chased off the villains. Izuku smiled. I'm glad, he said simply. I'm really glad you didn't get hurt. Making Momo blush deeper. But what is this? Your injuries were severe. The doctors gave up. Momo started, but I wouldn't give up after everything you said and did for me. You're right, I should save everyone I could, and it starts with you. She glanced over to her parents, who were still livid, but listening intently. My parents we're working on a new technology, nanomachines, microscopic robots that can self-replicate into any shape or form needed, intent to replace the need for specialized equipment and the near-infinite uses for them, allow endless possibilities in their application. The occupants of the room were stunned. How do I know that? Izuku looked around the room for an answer. One of the scientists spoke up. It's possible that if his head was also injured, that his memories and knowledge might also have been affected, which would also explain why he might not remember Mrs. Midoriya. It could be a temporary aspect, or it might be permanent. My son might not know who I am anymore. Inko cried out. We don't know, we were just barely starting tests for the nanomachines, and we never planned for human testing until at least a decade from now, said another scientist. Which is why you shouldn't have done this, young lady. Her father said accusingly at her. Who knows what it has done to this boy? He is alive, because of the machine's father. Momo justified her actions. That doesn't give you the right to make a decision like that. Her mother spat back. Quite. Inko screamed. She got up from her chair and prostrated herself in front of Momo. Ms. Yaoyorozu, you saved my son's life. For that I can never thank you enough. She got up and turned her gaze to her parents. As Izuku's mother, please accept what your daughter did as something truly heroic. Izuku is all that I have left, and he's alive because of what your company made. That doesn't change the fact that over 100 billion yen was lost, and we won't get results from any future testing. This could tip the board over the edge, and we could lose it all. Nashi Yaoyorozu responded. Izuku didn't like the tension in the room. Mrs. Yaoyorozu, He tried to choose his words right. I could be your test. The machines are in me, so can't you get something from that? He offered. Izuku, no, you can't just become a test subject, Momo gasped. You didn't have a choice in the decision, it's not right. But Momo, your parents are right. I don't know what it might do or be, but if I have these now, I should let your parents know what they do to me. Izuku pleaded. Ringo Yaoyorozu pondered, we couldn't just take you. Too many witnesses. Momo shrieked, Father, you can't be serious about abducting him. Ringo threw his hands up, not what I'm suggesting, but those machines did things to his body, to what extent we don't really know, so it would behove us all, for his own safety to be studied, and to determine what level of change those nanomachines had on his physiology. Nashi interjected as well, additionally he's a teenager, and will be going on to high school soon, so what were your aspects before today, young man? Izuku blushed, I wanted to be a hero. But honey, you're quirkless. Inko said to her son. Momo queried her eyebrow. Wow, not even his mother supported his idea, just like mine. Then she had an idea. That's perfect. She shouted, getting everyone's attention. What do you mean perfect? The boy doesn't have a quirk and wants to be a hero. Her father scoffed. Yes, she whined, he doesn't have a quirk, just the nanomachines, and wouldn't that be the absolute best case scenario to showcase and test them out against heroes? She spread her arms out. If he can without a quirk use the machines, to keep up with the best this country has to offer or better yet, surpass them, where else are you going to find a better way to sell it to the world? The scientists mumbled to each other, the Mr. and Mrs. looked at them, well would that really work? They asked. Theoretically there would be no better place besides a highly designed lab. UA has some of the best staff at training and drawing out a person's potential, and it is more capable than us of creating unique scenarios to test new and experimental equipment. One scientist shrugged. Our only complaint is that while there he would have many hours where his actions could not be seen firsthand or have a method to easily and quickly contact us if there are sudden changes to his body or the machines. So, I would prefer we had someone on the inside. Like a teacher or a student. Momo quickly asserted. She looked hopeful. The plan was to get Izuku into the UA so he could be a hero, but with this, I might be able to convince my parents to let me go as well. Nashi got a knowing look on her face. No, absolutely not, you are not using this to sneak your way into the UA to be a hero, she said. Momo stomped her foot on the floor. Well, what are you going to do, hire a teenager who might not get in anyway, or let it be known to some other teen that Izuku is technically the result of illegal human experimentation? Who else but me could do it and understand what changes could be happening to his body? Who else would understand the structures of the human system and be able to help him through this? It's not like he knows anyone else, she shouted. He even forgot who his mother was. He needs someone there that he knows. Her mother and father huddled together for a few minutes and quietly argued back and forth. Fine, but he needs to be under observation for the year leading up to his entrance exam at the academy. How will Izuku do that? He goes to public school and we live down in the neighborhood. Inko asked, the conversation having gotten away from her, but she at least knew Momo was not necessarily on her side, but she was on her son's, and that was all that mattered right now. We will obviously have to move you and your son into our home. It's equipped with its own laboratory, which will allow us to monitor anything that happens to Izuku during his time, and we will have him enrolled into Aichi Private Academy. He will be in Momo's classes. What about his friend? Ko was about to say before she was saddened by her own realization. My son has no friends, even the person who was his best friend as a child threw the river like trash. She grit her teeth. I accept, this is the best for Izuku. This stunned everyone in the room. No one had expected Mrs. Midoriya agrees to such a drastic lifestyle change with such a meager fight. Are you certain, Mrs. Midoriya? Momo asked. This is a big change for you and Izuku. If he doesn't remember me, then he won't remember all the bad he went through, sending him back to his old school. He'll just go through it all again, and I won't let that happen, not this time. Inko stood up proudly. When should we begin packing? Ringo laughed. Well, I always did like a woman who knew what she wanted. As he pulled out a phone. I'll have movers begin packing up your home, and everything will be sent over this weekend. How does that sound? As the adults shared information on how the move would go, Izuku shuffled close to Momo. Thank you, he said. For what? She looked down at him. For being safe, Izuku mumbled. I don't know if I would have been able to live with myself if you had gotten hurt. You almost died, Izuku. How can you be worried about me? Momo asked. Because at least I know I was strong enough to save one person without a quirk, Izuku smiled. For a few minutes I became a hero. Thank you. Before he slumped into her, causing her to cry out. The scientists rushed over, but after checking him noticed he had just fallen asleep. As Izuku was placed back in the hospital bed, he dreamed of a field of flowers and a beautiful woman in a yellow sundress waiting for him. Izuku was spending the weekend in the hospital on observation. Inko, his mother, who he spent many hours with relearning his own history, had been back and forth between his home and the Yaoyorozu, busying herself to pack up and move into the very spacious mansion. He was fairly neutral to the doctors, and it was reciprocated after Inko had spent 3 hours screaming at a hospital administrator in the lobby about his doctor's comments towards her son. They reassigned him a new doctor to study him. Inko, God, sorry mom, that's going to take some getting used to, Izuku mulled. She told me the doctor I have now was the one who originally diagnosed me quirkless as a child. Now Izuku, the quirk specialist, called out to him, drawing his attention from the books on Aichi Private Academy that Momo had brought him so that she could help him study to catch up to their advanced curriculum. Which Izuku found oddly easy. He had always been a studious child, getting good grades, at least that is what Inko had told him. But he didn't think it would be this easy, so he simply attributed it to Momo's very effective study schedule. Thinking about Momo made his face flush red. She is so kind, smart, and beautiful. I need to do something to thank her for being my friend. She's the only person besides Inko, mom damn it, the scientists and doctors to come and visit me. Which made him sad. Did he not have friends? He could vaguely remember a boy named Kachin, but his only interaction with him was pulling himself out of the river. Was that a regular occurrence, or was this a one-time thing? Izuku slipped back into his thoughts as he muttered possibilities about what kind of person he was. Izuku, I lost you again. The doctor called out to him, and if what your mother tells me, that isn't a side effect of the operation. Sorry, Izuku started. The doctor raised his hand in defense. It's quite alright, amnesia is somewhat rare, so it isn't uncommon to see those who suffer from it question the memories they have or don't have, but I would like to check and see if you are in an adequate shape to be discharged tomorrow. As he wheeled some machines over. Sure thing doc, what do you need? Izuku decided that, if he couldn't remember much about his past, he would dedicate himself to the one aspect he remembers, being a hero. So he watched heroes on the news. He thought a lot of them were pretty cool, calm, and collected, rushing into danger and saving people, but the hero that really got his attention was one who was giving an interview. The hero would spend his free time finding lost children and taking them to their parents, or just saving a cat in a tree. The knight-like hero said something very impressive, to Izuku at least. Whether I'm stopping a villain or just helping an old lady carry her groceries, it's heroic because it matters to them. Helping people with their problems is what a hero's job is. Well Izuku, I would like to take an X-ray now, as he set a camera up over Izuku's non-metal foot. I want to see if the changes had any other side effects. As he turned his back to head to the button to fire the camera, he heard a crunching sound. He hastily looked back at his patient and watched wide-eyed as Izuku's left arm had grabbed the camera and ripped it off its rotating arm, and Izuku was just studying the thing. Before black metal tendrils threaded themselves from his fingertips, he started to absorb the camera. Izuku, are you? He asked. I think so, but now my eyes see through stuff. Izuku looks around the room. Like skeletons and things. The doctor pulled out a pen and paper, writing notes. I believe you integrated the technology into yourself and modified your artificial eye to emit X-ray radiation. He sounded impressed. Really? That's kind of scary. Izuku looked around the room and saw people walking the halls, well-darkened skeletons moving around. Blinking a few times, he cycled through his vision settings back to a more natural style. I wonder what you were feeling to make you do that, the doctor wondered. You haven't done that to other technology in the hospital, and I think the doctors even got X-rays before this as well. So what caused a change? Izuku shrugged, I'm unsure, but I guess since I can see X-rays and stuff, I could try and tell you what was in my foot if you would like. He offered. Deciding that was easier than wheeling him into a new room, the doctor went with that. He would just inform the administration to bill the Yaoyorozu for some more new equipment. I would like to know how many joints there are in your pinky toe. Izuku cycled his eye, two. Still two then. The specialist wrote some more notes. Then I guess you are still quirkless, but he trailed off, you aren't without powers and abilities of your own. Meaning if you are serious about being a hero and going to UA, I will make some notes on your medical records that UA would be needed for your student profile. He said as he left the room, Izuku tracking his movement through the wall, then taking notice that two more skeletons were coming towards his room. Based on the people that come to see him, it wasn't hard to tell by their shape and size that it was Inko. And Momo, Mom, and my girlfriend, Mom, and my friend. Red-faced, he buried his head in his pillow as the door opened. Good morning sweetie, his mom called out to him. Good morning Inko, Mom, he sighed. His mother walked over to his bedside and patted him on his arm, flinching slightly at its cold metal feel. It's okay honey, it's a change. She consoled him. Momo felt something was out of the ordinary in the room and said the rotating arm attached to the wall was severed at the end. What happened here? She pointed and asked. Sorry the machines, which are me now, sort of absorbed the X-ray machine. He nervously said. Inko curled her eyebrows at her son, then looked at the girl she came in with, and what would that mean? Izuku, can you see things like an X-ray now? Momo asked him. Izuku only nodded in response. I didn't mean to, it just sort of happened. He quickly said. So does that mean you can see through clothes, as she quickly covers her chest, and private blushing. Izuku's entire face turned red. No, I can only see bones, and stuff, and your bones look nice. I mean I would think they look nice, since you look nice. I mean I'm not looking at your skeleton or anything, but I just guess since you're so pretty you might have pretty bones, and why can't I shut up, help me Inko, Mom. Who, like all moms in a situation like this, become traitors, just laughed at her poor son's predicament and watched the two teens turn scarlet as they awkwardly tried to defuse the situation. After a minute of her she granted her son mercy. Yes Izuku, Momo is a very beautiful young lady, she said making Izuku hide behind a pillow. Now we came here to tell you the move is all but completed so once you are released you can come to our new home. Is it nice? Izuku asked as he peeked over the pillow. Inko nodded, very nice, I already had your stuff brought to your new room. Then she leaned over and whispered into her son's ear. It's right across from Momo's, she insisted. Making Izuku cover his face again. Momo looked around the room, everywhere, but Izuku or Inko could see her face, which was tinged pink. I will go back home and inform my mother and father that you are already showing signs of compatibility with the nanites. Izuku called out to her before she shut the door. Momo, your parents, they aren't mad at you, are they? He asked. She had saved him at the potential expense of her parents' company. They aren't mad, but they aren't happy either. Those machines were over 100 billion yen in development. They are just worried that everything they spent their entire lives on is now riding on your success. It wasn't fair for me to put them in that situation, but it wasn't fair for you to be in the one that brought you here. Momo explained before she shut the door. Izuku's new vision lets him track her movements through the wall. So Izuku, let me teach you a few pointers on how to please a woman. Inko teased. Mom? Izuku cried out again, burying himself in a pillow. Okay Izuku, I want to see how much you can lift with your non-metallic arm, said a woman in a lab coat. Got it, as he reached down to lift the metal bar. Applying pressure now. As she turned dials, and the hydraulic press in the room increased pressure slowly. Tell me when. After about a minute Izuku called it. 98 kilograms. Very impressive. As the scientist turned to Inko, was he always this strong? Inko shook her head. No, he's been a determined young man, but not physically strong. What does this mean? She asked the scientist. The lady scribbled some notes onto her pad. It would seem that the nanites have slightly modified his body. My guess would be so that it doesn't destroy his body by having weaker material attached to them. She looked over to a computer and adjusted some numbers, but it would appear that his non-metallic parts are at least equivalent to a trained athlete. Now to just test the metal. Izuku, whenever you are ready. Izuku stretched his arms. These physical tests had been going on for a few hours. The early ones had just been to get him used to moving around with his new limbs. Now it seems they want to test his limits. He was much faster, able to complete a 50-meter dash in just under 6 seconds, not quite at pre-quirk Olympic records, but getting there. Okay, I'm ready, he called out before the machine increased pressure. Hearing Izuku call out a few minutes later, the scientist whistled, 470 kilos. As she wrote down his results. Inko cheered on her son. Wow, will he also get stronger? She asked the scientist. Most certainly, the nanites are going to grow and adapt with his body, so she put on a pair of goggles. We aren't sure what would trigger more responses out of the machines, as they appear to have become quite symbiotic to his body. She scrunched up her features. That's not the right way to say it, they are. She watched the boy stretch and move his body. It's like they have bonded completely and are just a natural part of his body. Inko was confused at the explanation, and if they didn't, making the other woman grimace. Well, if they rejected him, they could have become inert and done nothing, or assimilated him and replicated more of themselves instead. She coldly answered, but it seems that for whatever reason he was strong enough. I guess that the machines capitulated to his will or something. Could be because they were also bonding to parts of his brain, and they rewrote them into a natural part of his body, so all the machines are now working to protect and enhance the host. Said another voice, making Inko jump. She had forgotten about the other scientist. He was the lead developer for Yaoyorozu Industries, and he was strange. Yes, Dr. Hijimshikina, you're probably right. That's more scientific than his determination was enough to subdue them. Said the female scientist, completely unromantic in every way. She didn't mind working with the doctor in short bursts. He was truly brilliant, but he, like his namesake, was insane. His quirk was madness. It allowed him to induce periods of dementia and mental instability in a person, and rumor has it, he subjects himself to his own quirk for extended periods of time. He was a nice guy, but you had to be careful as what he says and does are two very different and similar things at the same time. Hey Izuku, we're going to test your reactions now. As Dr. Hijimshikina reached into his waistband. Okay, just tell me when Izuku started before a loud crack rang out in the room. He barely had a moment before his arm came up and he heard a solid ping as a bullet struck his metal hand. Inko was now screaming at Dr. Hijimshikina, you just shot my son. How could you? That's so irresponsible. Dismissively, the doctor responded. See, he's fine, he blocked it, and a good thing too, I was aiming at his head. Izuku was frustrated, and why were you aiming at my head? He shouted. Duh, if you want to be a hero, you need to get used to people attacking you, so now you at least know you can defend yourself. Dr. Hijimshikina answered. The lady scientist weighed in on this discussion. This test was to study his reflexes. We were going to throw tennis balls back and forth. PSH, anyone can catch a tennis ball, and these tests are taking too long anyway, Dr. Hijimshikina said with a bored tone. We want real results. He's going to take the UA exam, we need to test him like a hero. Push him to his limits. This nammy-pammy crap is wasting his, and more importantly, my time. That doesn't mean you can just shoot a child, especially mine. Inko screamed. He's fine, see, he even has that same dopey look on his face again. Wait, no, he always looks like that, Dr. Hijimshikina said. As Inko was infuriated by this doctor's complete disregard for safety, she did glance and noticed that Izuku had his patented thinking face on. She could almost see the words he was muttering too. I agree with Dr. Hijimshikina. Izuku concluded. Not about shooting me, that was a dick move, but these tests are just finding numbers. We could get those, if we also train me. It's been months since I've been out of the hospital, and the UA. The entrance exam is in about a year. I need to be serious about training, not just if I want to get in, but to prove that the nanites are a success. Inko was none too happy about her son's decision, but it was his decision to make. Fine, let's have you do some training. She stormed over to Dr. Hijimshikina and swiped the gun out of his hand, but this, you shoot my son again, and you'll wish I stop at shooting you. Dr. Hijimshikina growled like a jungle cat. Feisty, that's how I like them. He wiggled his eyebrows at the very displeased mother. See Izuku, you get nowhere without causing a little bloodshed and stress marks. Now tomorrow morning you'll join me on the lawn, 5:47 a.m, so, if you don't waste my time, I'll have you ready to tear those robots limb from limb, and probably a few other things too. Before he strutted out of the room. How can you work with a guy like that? Inko asked the remaining scientist. She shrugged, he really is brilliant, small doses help. Okay, Izuku, I think we're done for today. Izuku sat down in the large living room going over his notes for his middle school robotics course. Being an advanced and private school, the lessons they offered were more specified to potential futures, so they had courses that covered more aspects of the hero society they lived in. Since middle schools could not be legally licensed for quirk usage, they are unable to host hero classes like the ones taught at UA and Shiketsu, but they are able to foster classes that touch upon education such as support, business, and tactics. He was surprised at how much faster he was advancing in robotics class, even if much of it was theory and very little was building anything. It left him wondering on some level if the nanomachines made understanding machinery and computers easier. He had been stuck on a very specific question on the term paper for Mrs. Roboto's class. Izuku always thought it somewhat weird that some people's names just matched up with their personality or profession so easily, and was wondering if that played any significant part in choosing their careers. He just shrugged it off to a weird coincidence in life, like how I feel like sometimes events just move faster until something important happens. Izuku was pulled from his thoughts as Momo sat down next to him. Hey, are you still asking the same question? She politely asked. Izuku looked up from his textbook. Yeah, I know what answer she wants me to write, but he trailed off. You know that there is a better answer, but doing so would be counted against you. She finished his thought for him. Izuku nodded in return. He dropped his pencil on the coffee table. Even in the advanced classes the stuff is still the same, answer how the teachers want you to answer, even if you know it's wrong. Middle school is the same everywhere you go, I guess. Over the months his memories had been returning slowly, mostly just what happened there was some issue, where the emotions he would have been feeling at the time the event occurred didn't return with him. He understood that he had a terrible time in school, but now to him, it was all so far away. It made him wonder if it was healthy to have this much of an emotional detachment to his own past. Ugh, I would hope not. Momo groaned, as much as I like a solid education, if every school was filled with the same type of people, I would go insane. She flopped back into the fabric. In public she was Yaoyorozu, the beautiful daughter of one of the richest families in Japan. In the regular business meeting she sat in on, she was Ms. Yaoyorozu, expected future CEO of the entire company. Even at home she was Lady Yaoyorozu to all the servants and employees that managed such a luxurious manner, but here, when it was just her and Izuku, she was Momo, not a rich girl, not the next big boss, not the master's and mistress's daughter. She was a teenage girl sitting with a teenage boy, nothing more nothing less. Unless I wanted more. Suddenly blushing at the thought. It's not that bad, he said back, as she stretched herself out on the couch. I mean Shiraichi is different from what I'm able to remember, but… Momo stopped him with a confused look. Seriously, you want to go with it's just different? She questioned. Half the student body is already in arranged marriages to someone else. The other half is so high on their own fumes I wonder if anyone has ever told them no before. Well, you told that one guy no the other day. Izuku scratched his cheek. Because I'm not going to be some plaything for a spoiled rich kid waiting for his grandpa to kick the bucket and claim his meager inheritance. She tossed a pillow at him. But you still said no to him. He caught the pillow and placed it under her ankles. He knew Momo was in a comfy mood, she just wanted to vent and stuff. She'll grab the remote and put on some mindless action movie in a minute. Momo laughed, and how did he react to that, she rhetorically asked her friend. Izuku relented, poorly. Making her laugh harder. And how did you react to him reacting, she teased. Izuku blushed and hid his face. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. They got him out of the trash can eventually. At this point Momo was cackling madly. Yeah, the fire department had to come and use a metal cutting quirk to get him out. She grabbed the remote, just like Izuku knew she would, and began channel surfing. He shouldn't have tried to hit you. Izuku muttered before Momo began prodding him with her feet. And I think it's very sweet I have my big, strong knight in shining armor to defend my honor. Before she sized him up, well maybe not big or all that strong, and your armor is more matte than shiny. Hey, maybe you should try returning the favor sometime then. He indignantly stated. Oh, are all the girls chazzing short, green, and cuddly now? Well not now, but it'll happen, eventually, maybe. Fine, I promise to make sure all the other girls know you're mine then. Before she blushed realizing what she just said. Izuku found an opening to return fire. Oh, yours am I tell me again, how you'll protect my innocence from those evil succubi. He crawled over her legs and crept up her body. Izuku, Momo whispered. Yes Momo. Izuku stopped so his face was even with hers. I'll prote. As she stammered out her words the sound of a throat clearing made Izuku jump like a cat off Momo and fall to the floor with a loud thud. Yes, I would prefer if you didn't try to molest my daughter in my own living room, young man. Nashi said to Izuku. Over the months that the Midoriyas had been staying at the manor, she began to take a liking to the mother and son. She and her husband knew they were harsh at the hospital so long ago, but it was a very stressful situation, one she could have handled better, but as she got to know Izuku, she saw that while his memories had been affected every piece of information she could dig up on the boy showed that his natural heroic nature remained intact, so she knew he was a good boy and good for her daughter's budding confidence. As a result, this was not the first time she found the children seemingly prepared to take their relationship from friendship to something more. It did disappoint her that her own daughter still lacked the confidence to go all the way. God knows I did, before I was her age. What was that, Mom? Momo shouted in annoyance at the fact that another romantic moment was being ruined by another interruption. I said if you wanted Izuku to screw you silly, do it in one of your bedrooms, with the door locked. She also shouted back, knowing that a comment like that would win her the game she played with Mrs. Midoriya. Having Inko around the house was like a dream. She had never had much time for female companionship with devoting her life to her work, and the staff were always too timid to speak their mind, but the first time Inko and herself were leaving a parent-teacher conference at Aichi. As all the parent want to see how their money is being spent, when she called the headmistress a complete and utter windbag, they got along famously. Inko had no problems with integrating into the high society, and her down-to-earth nature let Nashi let loose in more common ways, and now having a second person who was there to tease the children was just the icing on the three-tier wedding cake. Mom PL please, Momo cried out in denial. This is Yaoyorozu, I wasn't going to. Izuku scuttled away from the couch. But the devilish smirk Nashi crossed the room, don't give me that, if you think you're ready to pin her to the couch, you better be ready to make a woman of my daughter. As she grabbed the remote and flipped over to one of the more risque channels, before running full tilt out of the room as Momo created objects to throw at her. DG's, the nerve of that, GRR, Momo snarled cheeks a deep scarlet. I know, I wouldn't do that to you here. Izuku agreed. Not here, but somewhere, she glanced at him shyly. Well, you're like my best friend and stuff, and I think you're really pretty and smart and fun and cool and funny and. Before a finger was placed on his lip silencing him. I might be thinking the same thing. She demurely said. So, what does that make us? Izuku asked. Late for dinner, is what it is. Inko shouted as she stuck her head in the room, having been tipped off by Nashi as to what their children were doing. Before she laughed as Izuku started yelling about evil mothers, she closed the door. Momo got off the couch and turned off the TV as she walked to the door leading out of the room. She squeaked in surprise when Izuku's hand slid into hers. Both teens had blushes and smiles on their faces, and the mothers were struggling to suppress their giggles while they ate. Later that night, who was watching porn in the living room? Ringo shouted, causing Izuku and Momo to wake up in their own rooms, and not even the good stuff Mr. Yaoyorozu added. Izuku crawled out of bed and got dressed in the clothes the scientists recommended for him to be tested in. When he got to the lawn at 5:46, Izuku looked around and didn't see anything. At exactly 5:47 he turned as he heard the sound of squealing brakes and an old car digging harsh gouges in the lawn before it came to a stop in front of him. Dr. Hijimshikina stepped out of the driver's seat. The not quite sane doctor pulled out a pocket watch. Good, you only wasted a minute. Izuku was confused, but I got here at 5:46, I was early. He was unsure how he wasted time. Dr. Hijimshikina walked over to Izuku and ruffled his hair. Yes, and that meant you were standing around for a full minute before he walked over and sat in a lawn chair, so if you did that every day, that's 365 minutes, 6 whole hours you wasted. And I doubt that's that only time you stand around. How many minutes out of a day do you waste, I wonder? Izuku thought about it, the man had a point, but all those moments so far in between each other, how much do they really add up? Anyway, why bring a car here? And as he took in the amount of destruction he caused to the lawn. Are the Yaoyorozu going to be okay with what you did to their lawn? Dr. Hijimshikina looked at the trail he made driving up. Nope, but they agreed to a little collateral when they hired me, so all they can do is yell at me. Now stop distracting yourself, you have 41 minutes left. Izuku looked at the car and then back at the doctor. To do? Ugh, seriously, destroy this car, punch it, kick it, fuck it, lick it, I don't care how you do it, just turn this hunk of junk into a pile of scrap. As the doctor pulled out a children's coloring book, then began to read it like a novel. Izuku walked over to the still running car. So anyway, is it fine? As he raised his fists. Yes, stop wasting time, you only have until 6:30 before we have to move to the next stage. Izuku turned back to the car and raised his fist and punched with a resounding clank. Nothing really happened. Are you sure this is a good training method? Dr. Hijimshikina walked over to Izuku and smacked him on the head with his coloring book. I saw what you did to Bearhead months ago. I know you can fight. Now figure out what you need to do to see this car, as he whacked it a few times with the book as an enemy. Then proceed to destroy it. Izuku nodded at the strange thought before he danced around the car throwing punches and a few knees into the frame. When he was hit with a metal arm and leg, it left a few dents, so he began to favor attacking with those parts of his body. After what felt like a few minutes, the doctor got out of his seat and pushed Izuku to the ground. Congratulations, you wasted my time at 6:30 and this car isn't destroyed. The doctor said angrily. Izuku looked at the car. The wheels were bent, the cabin had been caved in, and the door had fallen off. It looks pretty messed up to me. Of course you would think that, you little shit. As the doctor got in the driver's seat as best he could and hit the accelerator, the car began rolling forward. But look, I can still drive the damn thing. I can't believe the young lady is wasting her time on some weak-willed snot-nosed punk like you who is too afraid to attack an inanimate object. Izuku got pissed. Hey, leave Momo out of this. Why the fuck should I? She's the one who got duped by some loser into betting her family's company, her life, on someone who has the most powerful machines. As he jabbed the angry boy in the chest, in his blood, and can't do more damage in 43 minutes than I can with 5 and a hammer. And now you waste my time, just give up. The doctor stomped over to his chair to retrieve his book when he heard the sound of screeching metal and heavy pounding. Dr. Hijimshikina looked over his shoulder smirking. Works every single time. Izuku was huffing in anger, and the car had been folded in half. The engine sputtered and died. Izuku's hand and leg were bleeding from cuts gotten from the jagged edges of the car. The doctor casually pulled out his pocket watch. 15 seconds. Next time, I better not have to motivate you into doing something properly, otherwise, blood will be shed. As he leaned to the boy, and it won't be yours, he threatened. When Izuku walked back into the house to shower and ready himself for school, he got stopped by Momo, who was coming out of hers in a sheer nightgown. Izuku squeaked as he could see the outlines of her breasts in the fabric before he covered his face and ran into his room. Izuku just wanted to see how the first lesson with the madman went, she said while knocking on his door. We just need to Takeshi and cool off, he spit out. Momo got more concerned. Izuku said something was wrong. Are you feeling okay? Nope, nothing wrong, just a best, Izuku shouted. I'm coming in, something might be wrong with the machines, Momo stated as she turned the handle. Wait, Natant, Izuku yelled as he tried to hide, but she came in faster than he could cross the room and froze, a steaming red blush on her face as she got an eyeful of his member. Momo slowly closed the door. I'm just gonna got a breakfast, Momo said rapidly as she ran off. Izuku got in the shower and began smacking his head on the tiles. At the dining table, Momo sat down hard, alerting the other occupants, which were the parents. So Momo dear, what got you all riled up this morning, said Ringo. Momo looked down. Nothing, I don't know what you're talking about. She tried to play innocent when the mothers began snickering. And what do you two have to say about it, huh? Inko snorted. Nothing, just didn't think it was this cold in here. Momo curled her head in confusion and then in a moment of clarity looked down and screamed, then covered her chest. Izuku. She realized that she had all but went out of her room naked. Nashi took the easy shot. Is Izuku making his way up Mount Momo? Compared to the three women, Momo easily had the largest of all their breasts. Mom, no, Momo defended herself. I just saw. Ringo put down his paper in the same way that all fathers do. Wait, you saw? What did you see? He interrogated. Momo blushed and stammered. No, nothing dad, just the snake, Inko answered for her. A rare trouser snake. Well, that's fine then, seeing your boyfriend's penis isn't anything strange. Ringo said bluntly as he raised his cup to be filled with coffee from the maid. All the occupants of the room looked at him as though he had just confessed to being All Might. Ringo looked around the room. They like each other. I'm not some stereotypical idiot dad who can't see it. I just ask that they be safe. He raised his newspaper and grumbled, not wasting a good plotline trying to keep them apart won't do anything, and that just results in a musical number. No sir, not this guy. As he lost himself in his own world. Okay, then if everyone is happy with it, I'll start drawing the marriage contract. Now how many dozens of children do you think they need, 3 or 4? Nashi asked Inko. Oh, I love babies, so let's go with an even 50, Inko replied. Moms, stop it. Momo yelled. Inko squealed, she's already calling me mom too, as she grabbed the teen girl into a hug. Ooh, I'm so happy. Izuku walked in the room and hoped he wouldn't have to make eye contact with anyone, but the sight of Momo struggling to get free of his mother's hug and the giddy look in Mrs. Yaoyorozu's eyes made him slowly start backing up. Izuku helps Momo, seeing her only option for salvation. Izuku tried to turn to run, but his mother used her quirk on him, not enough to stop him, but it slipped his foot slightly, making him stumble. Oh no sweetie, Nashi crossed the room faster than one would think a middle-aged woman could, before she grabbed him. Then dragged him to sit next to Momo who was still covering her chest. You need to sit with her, get more comfortable with her wearing so little, as she turned the boy's head to stare at the blushing teen. We need to get ready for, Izuku started to say without actually looking away, even though her mother was no longer holding his head, but he paused for a while to burn this image into his mind. School, Momo whispered, while enjoying that the boy was so enraptured with her, she didn't like that everyone, including the staff, were having an absolute ball with their interaction. Zuku, school, her voice barely audible. Izuku swallowed, yeah, that place. He said, wrenching his head to stop staring, need to, learn. His breakfast was placed in front of him as the maid giggled and walked away. The morning meal was so awkward for the teens as their parents would guffaw at everything they did. When the pair walked out the gate, Momo questioned him about the lawn and the destroyed car. It was training. That's unusual, Momo said. It was with Dr. Hijimshikina, Izuku shrugged. Oh, that's very normal then, she admitted. Anything unconventional with regards to their infamous employee was within the bounds of reality. She climbed into the limo as Izuku held the door for her before he got in behind her. So you have a year to train for the UA entrance exam then? She asked. Yeah, about that long. What about you? Izuku wondered about how Momo was going to get into the school. When he did ask, he noticed Momo frowned. What's wrong? Recommendation, she quietly said ashamedly. Izuku was stunned. Wow, I knew your quirk was strong, but to get one of the recommendation slots, that's incredible. Even Ingenium did get in that way, he praised the distressed girl. So why do you look so sad about that? Momo sniffled. Because I didn't earn it, my parents made a massive contribution to the UA, so in return the board of directors gave the slot to me, which I didn't earn. She yelled, unaware that her voice had been growing louder during her rant. That's not true, Izuku comforted her. Your quirk is amazing, probably the most useful quirk in the world. You can make anything, and you're also the smartest person I have ever met too, since you have to know how everything works. If that isn't enough to deserve a recommendation, then nothing does. Momo rubbed her eyes. I disagree, but thank you for believing in me all the same. Anytime, Izuku said as he draped his arm around her shoulder and pulled her into him. They spent the rest of the ride up to the school in each other's arms. Thanks for watching this video. Part 1 is over. If you really enjoy this video, like, subscribe, and comment down below, and turn on that bell notification. And also check out the playlist that I have created and enjoy. Link is in the description. See you in the next video. Goodbye.